it's par for the course for me to, bring the funk this way, so that's all good. I want to say some things about Sister Sonura to put on the tape for the people around the country, because she's been giving these lectures, and what happens when you give these lectures, what happens is they go all over. So you become known nationally and internationally because because these tapes go all over. And that's one of the main things right now is the most important thing is to get a good tape. You see what I'm saying? Because these things reach all over the place. And I want to give a little history because she started out. We started out in 2001. I used to go to Indianapolis, Indiana, and with a brother named Darrell Rice, and before him was a brother named Pete Rocker, and then the baton was passed with Sister Sonura dealing with the House of You, which was one of her centers that sold African products and a multiplicity of African culture. And then it also had various sisters that came about with different talents. And it was a really great old time. You see what I'm saying? Real interesting things that went down in the House of You. I say that to say because now we are in Shreveport, Louisiana, which is the birthplace of Sister Sonura. So she made a pilgrimage back to her birthplace and is now dwelling amongst the actual community here. So what you do, you actually see a person's actual journey, or a person's progress, or a person's path. So, like I said, we started out in Indiana. She's still connected with Indiana, but she came back here, a year ago?
Yeah, a year ago.
About a year ago, and that's taking your path and going around where you need to go. So everybody has a purpose, and everybody has a path. Not a path, but a path. And so as a result, what happens here is you dwell in several places that the Spirit leads you. So we know that, and the reason why I know that this is a real spiritual place. I came here a year ago back in the spring of 2006, and the energy was off the chain. The energy was off the chain. I wore a pink shirt. I don't know if it came out pink on the pink or sweat, one of the two, in honor of the voodoo goddess Urzuli. And it's interesting because the sister Enrica is here, who was a native New Orleans, I guess. What is it? New Orleanian that was displaced in Houston based on Katrina. You see what I'm saying? I don't know if she was wiped out of her place, but I guess she figured, place so devastating, let me get the hell on out of here. And so that's a path for her, as a path to also come back, to her home state. You see, and Sister Sonura is initiated under the whole Urzuli lower type of energy, as well as Sister Enrica that I met. Was it a year ago also? Yeah, 2000. Yeah, about a year now. So this shows you how the Spirit is actually working. So real powerful energy, because I always wanted to go to New Orleans, but never got the chance before the city got wiped out. And lo and behold, because I spoke for 12, 13 years, 14 years, and no New Orleans, and as soon as the city gets wiped out, I get a chance to come to Shreveport. But that means in an actuality, and when we got here the last year, they said, well, if you'd have been here 2 weeks before, you would have been in this hotel that we stayed with a whole bunch of Katrina people. So it goes to show that the Spirit is a path that is going down, and when we did the actual lecture, it was real powerful. And so I knew this morning when I woke up, when you wake up and you feel like you're coming out of a meditation, like a whole lot of energy, and you just only just got out of a sleep, I said, well, it's real powerful energy. So yesterday we went down to the lake. What's the lake name?
Cross Lake.
Cross Lake. And we saw hundreds of dead fish Little small, what kind of fish are those?
Shad.
Huh?
Shad.
Little shad fish. Just hundreds of them. And so it was indicated that they might have died because of the heat. But I'm saying, wait, there's something else that's going on. Something going on that's spiritual. And that's the thing in the spirit world, what you got to do is, you always got to look at the small. The small is the most sublime. Sometimes we look for miraculous things because we train in our aspect of religion or this rapture. This rapture, this revelation. You see and stuff. So we're always looking for these things, but we're not trained on the small, minute things of spirituality. You see what I'm saying? Small, minute things. And give you an example. The other day, about 2 months ago, me and my queen, we bought a brand new refrigerator, a Frigidaire. Paid $300 for it, $299, and because it was the flow model, we got it for cheap, because something like $500-600. Got it home, and 2 months later, and this Friday, the whole thing conks out. Come to find out, we had a bad. The wall of the house it's an old house, so the wiring was bad, and it burned out the compressor because I guess the wires was corroded. So she was like, well, damn, you get ready to go to Louisiana, and I'm going to have to spend the whole weekend without a refrigerator. So we called down to these black people that sell these used refrigerators or whatever, and we said, look, we need a refrigerator. We only want to spend about $100. We want to get an ice box just to get us through. And the guy said, he said, you got to come down here and pick them out. We don't really deliver and without the money or whatever. But anyway, he said, let me work on something. He called back and said, well, I'm on my way. So he came and delivered the refrigerator, and he said, we don't do this. He said, but what happened is I heard your voice, and hearing your voice, the Spirit told me to bring this refrigerator. The point I'm trying to make here is that she willed the magic in her voice to get him to do that. You see, which is talking about the smaller things that we got access to when we talk about this new world of magic and making things happen. And a lot of times we can get bogged down into a sophistication of it, and it takes years to do things, but you could have a shortcut by just basically dealing with the smaller elements. Now, I don't know what the fish was about, but I went to buy this Evans Williams, which was some bourbon. I said, well, that's part of course, bourbon in Louisiana. And it had a fish, the little fish hook things, when you buy the little fish and you put it on the rod and it has a hook. It had a fish that came along with it, the same color and the same size as the fish that died in the actual lake. So I'm saying, these are symbols and symbolic of things that's actually happening. I don't know what it's going to come out of that yet, because it's going to be something from it. But the thing here is, at this particular time, is to take a calculation of real small things. That's how you really learn spirit. You have to start noticing. So and it's ironic, we rode up the street, there was a guy holding the same fish that we saw dead in the lake that came with this alcohol. There was the same fish on the billboard the guy was holding in his hand, right up the street.
It's right up there, y'all, at Hollywood and Glenwood.
Right, so you got a billboard with a fish and a guy holding the same fish in his hand, and it's the same fish in the lake. Now, I'm just trying to say, this is how you put together what they call a magical diary. You're trying to learn how the spirit world works. We have been taught religion all our life, and religion is political. And the first thing religion has to do to maintain itself is it has to basically wipe out all things that's spiritual and tell you that everything that's spiritual is evil. You see. So basically, with the Conference of Nicaea and the people that took these ancient scriptures because they were ancient scriptures. That's why you can go, and we're going to go into that in a few minutes. They took these ancient scriptures And it's not that you can't go in right in the Bible and find all kind of stuff on what it really says, but if a person trains you to read it a certain way, you can miss all the stuff that's in there, because the simple fact here, you're going by somebody's theology other than going by the Spirit.
That's right.
Now those particular scriptures come from the come out of Library of Alexandria, comes from the Egyptian temples, Library of Alexandria. Then the Roman government got a hold of those scriptures, and when they started writing these things, just editing, just piles of papyruses and piles of these particular ancient scriptures, and then edited it down to several pamphlets and made it into what you call several Bibles, and they have several Bibles, Schofield Bible, the Latin Vulgate Bible, Septuagint Bible, there's all these other Bibles where you can get to the King James Version. But the point about it here is, and I put this on the tape for people that still, dealing with the Bible. The point about it here is, if you go in there and start reading certain things without a theology that you taught, then stuff just jump right out at you. You see what I'm saying? Now, it's interesting here because there's a deity, we'll get into, there's a deity I'll show you in a few minutes, that we'll get into in a few minutes, that's in there. But then again, on the other hand, there's a deity coming from ancient Egypt. There's Osiris in the Bible at least 16 times. But it's under Asar or Wasar. At least 16 times. And I got tapes where I actually give the actual Bible verses and stuff. So, but I don't know where I was going with that. But anyway, in dealing with certain, making yourself a magical diary so that you can somehow come in and deal with the spirit world on a minute level till it becomes commonplace. So what happens here is you start noticing things around you, and the things that's around you will start magnifying and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. A lot of stuff comes through nature. You see what I'm saying? And I'm going to show you some science on how nature corresponds with certain things that you do. You'll get a response. You see, you'll get a response immediately. But very little things that's religious, which is political or spiritual. As a matter of fact, most religions basically frown upon spirituality. You see what I'm saying? Spirituality is the greater laws of the entire universe. And because everything is in the universe, then you can't omit things saying this good and evil stuff. You see, if it's in existence, how could it be evil in that particular aspect? It's just polarities we're dealing with here. And once you start understanding polarities and get out of this training of this evil thing, then what will happen here is these worlds will open up for you. Now, so what I want to do is, I want to pour some libations right quick, and spit the alcohol. And alcohol is a spiritus, which is the spirits. That's why you say food, wine, and spirits. And this is something that directly invokes the entities, the gods. You also want to start, and I'm going ahead of myself, but you want to also start dealing with things like Florida water or rose water. These are real, and so basically, your altars that you would build, or certain spiritual things that you would have, whether it's your jewelry or whether it's certain statues and certain things that's in your house, you want to clean them with Florida water or rose water and things like that. Because if we are made up of every metal, every alloy, every mineral is inside of us, then an inanimate object that you have, which is made up of certain metals, certain materials, is inside of this particular universe. That inanimate object is a living and breathing thing, which means your bones, if you took your bones and took them out of your body and threw them on the floor, there'd be dry bones, dead bones. But your bones could be encased with cells, chakras, all types of blood, whatever. And yeah, all these things, and as a result, these actual bones will start to live. You see what I'm saying? So my point here is the spirit world also can be invoked through these particular statues, these masks. This is why I think I'm going ahead of myself. So the Florida water, when you wash these particular inanimate objects with the Florida water, the rose water, or other different things that you washed up with, you actually open gateways and clean things that the spirit world can come in, and these can become talismans. They can become objects. Now, as I go into it, we're going to take this to a bigger scale, which is the Egyptian temples, and show how the Egyptians used to bring certain dimensions, certain segments of heaven into the physical realm, into the environment. We're going to get into we're going to get into that. So we're going to spit this right quick, and just ponder some things. Now, because we're doing this, because I do believe that everybody that comes to something is supposed to be at something, and it's a certain gathering. Feel free to open up, and if you have any questions, we don't want to see what you want to do every now and then. No matter how rigid the rules are, you want to change up things, and that's how the Spirit does. Every now and then it's good to change up things. So if anybody has any questions, even right now, or anything right now, you can ask the question, because the question is a part of the program. It's a part of the answers and stuff like that. So yeah, go ahead.
When you say magical, would you explain what you mean? I guess
magic. Yeah, that's a great question. See right there, that was something that needed to be explained. And I'll give you an example why it's a great question. When I first went into a metaphysical bookstore years ago, I saw they had a whole magic section. And I turned to the guy and I said, "What is this, all this magic?" And it was a white guy. He smiled. He said, "It depends on what you think magic is." And what you think magic is. And in so many words, what he was saying was, we've been trained in magic is tricks, like David Copperfield, Doug Hennings. They got newer ones now. And basically they are illusionists. You see what I'm saying? And what it is, those are tricks. Those are things where people trick the eye, trick the mind. Those are tricks. Even mind control can be a part of those tricks, as the Nation of Islam called tricknology. But those are tricks. So what they did is they took an ancient word and put on a modern phenomenon of illusions. So when we say magic, a lot of time it invokes something that is an illusion, something that's a gimmick, something that's a trick. Whereas the magic that these esoteric books that they talk about in these metaphysical bookstores is our ancient technology. Two different systems. So they took an ancient word like magic, which was talking about the black man's, to put it bluntly, or the black woman's, or the ancient ancestral way to technology. You see what I'm saying? Advanced technology. Advanced technology. They took this word magic and put it on a new phenomenon called tricks and stuff. And now you think that so a lot of times it invokes spookism, or unreal, that stuff. But we're talking about an ancient way of technology. What's that question?
My question relates to that too, for myself.
Yeah.
Coming from a Christian
right.
background, could it be still? Could it be considered like a miracle?
Yeah. See, the miracle. Yeah. See, now here it is. The miracle that they're talking about, that we are trained on in Christianity, these are good questions. These are things, that's what the Spirit does, is bringing you things to get to the bottom of things that's on our people's mind, even when we go out and the tape goes around. The word like miracles that they're talking about. The miracles that they're talking about, there's a methodology and a science to those miracles. It's just that Down the line, when they're trying to style the theology on how they're going to bring it to you, you only hear of the miracle, and that's just the effect. There's something that was behind a succession of things that went into it ultimately becoming a miracle to the person that don't understand that there's a forces in the universe that came in that makes the miracles. Let me give you an example. I talked about this yesterday. Marie Laveau in New Orleans, when they came to arrest her a couple of times, they couldn't find the house. Couldn't find the building. You see. So whatever the deal was, what they call a magic, or what they call a certain scientific principle, she brought certain forces together to produce invisibility. You see what I'm saying? Invisibility that fool the people, or the people basically, but this was real science other than just the trick thing. So she brought these forces together to produce a cloaking mechanism, and there was a science to that. You see, give you an example. There was a sister I met back in 1994 named Atifa. Now Atifa was in her 50s back then, so she would probably be in her mid-60s now. But she used to talk about how when she was a little girl, she used to sneeze and disappear. Now, that would seem like a miracle to people that actually saw this. People would come around in the neighborhood, you see what I'm saying, and not necessarily make her sneeze, but when they, just look at her and basically, if it happened, they would see a miracle. The only thing happened is the process, the ancient process of knowledge that went into certain molecular structures and certain alchemical and certain chemical things that come together to produce this disappearing. It was lost. They didn't have the science. So as a result, it became a miracle. So Rudolf Steiner and even Edgar Casey and a couple of other people used to say that religions is what occurs when the ancient civilization dies, the ancient knowledge in the civilization dies down. They lump the fragments together, and that's what you would have when it comes to religion. And so therefore you have to explain these things in miracles. It's only a miracle because you've forgotten the ancient science, or the ancient science of what would occur as a miracle is not around anymore. You see what I'm saying? It's not around anymore. So in so many words, even in the Bible, when they talk about these miracles, they're actually talking about vestiges of ancient black technology that was still around at the particular time that they just happened to record, and it's simplified as a miracle. The walls of Jericho tumbling down, and they say, put all these riches together, and the walls of Jericho will come tumbling. You've heard these things before. These are scientific things. You see this actually a little thing encased on it, and they were giving away this free fish hook, which you put on the reel and it's got the hooks in it.
Right.
But the fish that they was giving, a little plastic fish, looked exactly like the fish that was in the Lake Day. Then we got up, and I said, you need to put this on your altar. Then we got up and went up the street, and there's a guy holding a fish in his hand on the billboard. Now the science here is this is the way you're going to break it down. You look in symbology of what the fish is. And in looking in symbology of what the fish is, you see what I'm saying, that gets you closer to what's going on. Now let me give you an example of what I'm thinking it is. To give you an example. This turtle, show you how the spirit world works. This turtle is painted turquoise, and I think Sonora did this. I went to Detroit to this guy who's voodoo Vaucour practitioner, and in his house he had his bathroom was done up to an African goddess called Erzuli, which I'm going to get into. Done up to an African goddess called Erzuli. Let's get this. Get you one picture. This is one picture of her. This Yemunja, I did a lecture on her called The Rise of the Dogon Goddess, because in Dogon she's called Emiya. Now, I'll show you where I'm going with this. Now, I've been dealing with her since February, and all of a sudden I come down here and I see all these fish. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes the fish, in order for you to notice certain things that's going on, or what type of energy is inside of you, the energy that's inside of the lake, is all connected. Something has to die as a symbol. You see? So these fish, otherwise we wouldn't have known that this is some type of something that's spiritual that's happening. This is a spiritual response. Not unless you have these dead fish. Just as a sign. So what is the sign? The sign is, in one of the traditions, is Yemunja is also a goddess or a god called Olokun. That's the god that's in the deep sea. Yemunja is the sea. Olokun is one that resides under the sea. It's supposed to be her masculine half, but they're two halves of the same entity. They say when Olokun rises, one day Olokun will rise from the sea. And when he rises from the sea, the first thing will start happening is people will not be able to hide undercurrent thoughts or ulterior motives. You will be able to read people just by their own behavior, because they can't mask certain pathologies or certain way they feel about you or certain conspiracies. You see what I'm saying? Or certain things on what they're going to conspire. That's the first level of you seeing things, but the ultimate is talking about the soul rising. The soul rising. Now, they would make this evil in the Bible as Leviathan, but Jonah was swallowed by the whale. These are metaphysical things. The whale represents the physical illusion around you that you've seen the movie The Matrix, that shields you from the truth. The physical, crude body. So Jonah, swallowed by the whales, is the same vibratory rate slowing down to get you trapped into a physical body. You see what I'm saying? Now, this is the metaphysical thing of Jonah being swallowed by the whale. But the science has been lost, or either there's certain priesthoods that keep those particular science quiet and give the people the little fairy tales, and you don't really understand the real meanings of it. Other than don't do this and don't do that, you're going to hell. See what I'm saying? Which is a whole other spiritual aspect. The heat of hell that they talk about is when the dog star is in the sky, doing from June 21st on into August something, on into dog days. The heat. You see what I'm saying? That's the ancient word for that, the whole summer solstice thing. There's a whole lot of stuff with this stuff. Symbolism later on broken down to give you these fairy tale stories to put you in fear, because somebody politically didn't want a certain group of people to understand the truth. So they took the same mythology of high science and to put you into fear. So here you are 40, 50 years, 30 years plus, still believing in some spook stuff. Of a devil and a pitchfork. You see what I'm saying? And it's become a scapegoat for every messed up thing that you did in your life. You say the devil made me do it. That's a scapegoat. You see what I'm saying? So that's a whole other philosophy. So in so many words, I've already gave you part of the mythology of why those particular fish were doing what they're doing. And it will lead to, as you take a magical diary, it will lead to greater understanding of knowledge. But ultimately, it will lead to something that's transforming in your own life. That's the mystery. Everything that you deal with on the greater universe has to go back to what is the minute universe or the inner universe, which is inside of you. And that's the ultimate aspect of that. You see, that's the ultimate aspect of that. There's something that is happening to us in our bodies. We are rising to a certain level. You see what I'm saying? And that's why Yemunja comes back. She not only comes back as a goddess that's rising, but she's also coming back of these components that's on the inside of you. You see what I'm saying? Now take for instance, you have Leviathan, which is supposed to be the great fish under the bottom of the sea in the Bible. But they got ancient, so they'll give you the fairy tale, the spookism, but then they got ancient texts that say Leviathan the fish and Jesus is the same thing. The same thing. Let's go a little further. You'll see a fish on people's cars riding around with a little Jesus fish. Now if you take those two ends off of the back of the fish and turn it upright, it becomes what is called a vesica. And that's some shit. So these people were so advanced, they were so advanced that they could encode certain sciences into symbology. You see what I'm saying? Into symbology, you see, and comes all the way down to something that you don't understand now. That is a major aspect, because Leviathan is supposed to be a female fish, but there's some pictures of Leviathan spitting up these water bubbles, and the water bubbles that she's spitting up, each one has 12 men in it, up top, and the main one coming out of her mouth is Jesus Christ, showing that the energy of the whole fish thing and all of this type of stuff that they're talking about, you see what I'm saying, it's nothing but the Christ energy. The mystery here is, it ain't no man walking around in no sandals. The Christ energy, because they got those bubbles which represent chakras. This is the energy that's on the inside of you. It's the energy that's on the inside of you. I wish I had a diagram of those particular things. Trying to show you that in order to understand things, you're going to have to get into a lot of certain symbology. We'll get into some of this tonight that will lead you to greater understandings. You see what I'm saying? Of the mysteries that's ultimately you're raising up to a higher level. You're raising up to a higher level. You understand where I'm coming from? So let's just spit the libations right quick. Let me explain something else, because that's the way the spirit works. They say that black people, and that is one reason why sisters in the Western Hemisphere got a lot of weight on them. A lot of the weight that you have on you is because of an attribute and a talent or a spiritual aspect that's very advanced. And because the male burns weight different, you see what I'm saying? You see, it's a different process. But we have melanin in our taste buds. So that's why they have figured out since the turn of the century, since the Civil War, or even since before the slavery, that in order to have a great cuisine, you got to have a black person in the kitchen at least tasting it. You see what I'm saying? You got a black cook, then it's good to go. You see. And America is based off of that, but it's based off of us having high melanin in the taste buds. But those taste buds, if you break it back down to each one of those taste buds, which is millions, are nothing but millions and millions of souls. This shit goes amazing. The autonomy of the body of God. You see what I'm saying? There's a movie called Osmosis Jones with Bill Murray. And in the movie, it's a movie about a civilization that's going on the inside of his body. It's going on the inside of his body. And there's a whole universe in there. So that's why they say, is it not written in your law that I say, ye are gods? John chapter 10, verse 34, 36. And the scriptures cannot be broken. And Jesus said that. You see. Is it not written in your law that I say, ye are gods? And the scriptures cannot be broken. Then it says, one say, God stands on the congregation of the mighty and call them gods. You are hearing a conversation. You're hearing a conversation not of one God, but plural. You see, we asked we're going to celebrate the passing of Dr. Asa Hilliard. Asa Hilliard was an Egyptologist in our own right, in the black community and in the black collegiate world, and the white. If you talk to a lot of white folks about their history being black, he was a pioneer. He's one of the pioneers. So what it is, you have a pioneer, which would be a person named Dr. Yosef Ben Yaakinin, Dr. Asa Hilliard and Dr. Charles French would be the ones in Egypt, which is the pioneers. And in the African science, John Henry Clark was the pioneer. So we just did, and then you'll have other people that would come behind them, and they would be people that came with research after these particular ones. But the pioneers were the catalysts for these things. So the one that we lost last Sunday in Egypt, the professor, Asa Hilliard was one of the pioneers. Was one of the pioneers, and I was getting ready to go into something about that. It'll come back to me. What's that?
When you first mentioned the fish, first thing that came to my mind was La Sirène, the voodoo aspect of, with the mermaid aspect of theirs.
That's right, the mermaid aspect, which is La Sirène is the Yoruba aspect of La Sirène, would also be Yemoja or Olokun. You see what I'm saying? Yemoja or Olokun. Yeah. This is what I want to say about Asa Hilliard. Asa Hilliard asked this question one time, and I've been using it for years too. I think I heard of this back in '89. It's just asking the question. Somebody said, well, he asked the audience, is many gods bad? And they said yes, based on what polytheism or what we was taught. That's bad. He said, now hold on. I don't want to get you something what somebody told you, because they never really told you a reason why many gods would be bad. See, the point about it is he said, and there's a reason why they don't tell you that. He said, I need to say this again. Forget what you have learned as a Christian or what you have been indoctrinated as a child. You're only regurgitating something that you've been hearing all your life. Now, if I asked you, if you didn't have this Christian doctrine saying that many gods was bad, would multiple gods be bad? And they said, you got to be honest with it. I want you to analyze here. And the audience thought for a minute and they went, no, it wouldn't be. Because there's really no explanation on why it would be bad. Some people just say, as a child, this is bad. You see what I'm saying? But they don't give you an explanation. Well, what would be the explanation? It's a greater story to this. But if somebody didn't tell you that multiple gods was bad, you see what I'm saying? And you came across a system that talked about multiple gods, it wouldn't be bad at all. As a matter of fact, it would be more like science. It'd be like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You see the H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A, E, I, O, U. Sometimes Y. It would be science. And that's exactly when you go in the Egyptian and you see these temples and you see these multiple deities. These multiple deities represented different aspects of the one God or the God one. So what do you mean? The Christian says God is everywhere. And you just explain that there's this one God looking down on everybody, and he's everywhere. I'm under here, can't hide from me. You'd be real stupid to be looking, like if I'm at an anthill, I don't give a damn about what them ants is doing down there. But that's the level that they explain it to you on the boogeyman style. But the Egyptians, which was advanced scientists in the origin on where this stuff comes from, they could break it down to say, well, ultimately, if you talk about this one God or the God one or whatever this force, it has to be broken down into attributes to be relevant in how you can even use it on earth. You see what I'm saying? That's why the Muslims say there's 99 aspects of Allah. The Christians will say God is everywhere. But they are pagans and they are evil because they got multiple gods. But yet you got archangels, and the archangels that you got, Raphael, Michael, and all these archangels, used to be the same multiple gods of the Netters in somebody else's culture. So it's easy for somebody to go up in somebody's culture and say, that's evil. That's more political and prejudice. You see what I'm saying? Because you don't have the linguistic aspect to understand their culture, yet you got it in your culture as the archangels. There's 72 archangels, there's 72 demons. You see what I'm saying? So how could there be 72 archangels in your mythology and in your science, but so somebody else has got 72 deities, the 72 sons of Ptah, and their stuff is evil, isn't it? You see what I'm saying? Oh, we worship one God. Now, what the hell are these archangels? But the expression of the one God. Well, how you say the expression of the one God? Because you say that God is invisible. So if he's invisible, you got to have the expression of it, which would be the science of these particular archangels. One does this, one does this, one does this, one does this. You see what I'm saying? Well, the same Amun-Ra is called the hidden God. And the manifestation of the 72 other gods, or netters, you see what I'm saying, is the expression of the same one God of God one. Just depends on, you see what I'm saying, hearing it from somebody else's perspective. You see? So anybody who ever made claim that some other religion was false or evil never really truly knew the other religion. It's like I was in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and a woman said it has been known that the Buddhists worship the devil. I said, oh, wow. I said, man, that's some amazing shit. I said, can you explain it to me on how that's the devil? She said, no. I said, do you even know what Buddhism is? She said, no. I said, so you repeating some shit some motherfucker told you. You see what I'm saying? So we have been in this regurgitation all these years of something that somebody told us and we just take it face value. See what I'm saying? December 25th is a god called Mithra born in a cave. One you just change it, born in a manger. Mithra is nothing but the Persian form of Horus. Horus is December 25th, and they got a tribe called the Yazidi tribe, and I'll show the picture of this god called Nebet-Het. Nebet-Het, god from ancient Persia, ancient Babylon, now known as Iraq. This is a god called Nebet-Het, the peacock god, born a peacock god that the Christians now call the devil, Shaitan. Birthday on December 25th. One man's God is another man's devil. Just depends on your perspective. This is the equivalent of Jesus, Horus, and all of that. But if you don't understand this is a god worshipped by a Yazidi tribe in a place called Kurdistan. That's your Kurds, that the so-called Saddam Hussein were. These are the people used to worship back. There used to be a black people called the Kurds. They have lightened up over the years by migration of Europeans or whatever, or the Arabs. But the Kurds, and what they'll tell you right now, you go over there, you can see a Kurd blue-black. The Kurds used to worship Nebet-Het. They worship Nebet-Het. And this is an ancient spiritual deity, you see, also called Mithra. And later on Jesus. But also Horus. But if you get out of the political aspect of that your God evil because I just live over here and this is my culture, and so it's just like it's no different than damn the Crips and the Bloods. See what I'm saying? It's the same war going on where you done demonize somebody else's spiritual aspect, and the same spiritual aspect that you done demonized is the same one you worship too. You see. Now this is Nebet-Het. That is December 25th. That is the gods. That is the people with the Kurds. I met a guy when I went to Detroit, and I was meeting up with this Yemen y'all. I missed the plane, so I had to go back. To go home, I had to go back to spend the night to catch the plane 7 o'clock in the morning. When the next plane came out, And the guy who came to pick me up was a Kurdistan. He was from the Kurds. Because the professor who taught these guys, he teach these Arabs, he teach all these and stuff, and he got these Arab guys to do what he won't done. Why? Because we stopped to give you a part of the culture. To give you a part of the culture. And let me explain why we suffer, why we suffer. Then I'll pour libations. He came to pick me up. One guy was from Jordan, ancient black place, and one guy was from Kurdistan, Iraq. They came to pick me up. They hundreds of miles apart, Jordan and Iraq. You see what I'm saying? Miles apart. But it's the Arab culture, which you see what I'm saying, but it's got its origin from an African culture. Now, they come to pick me up, and I go into the gas station. They're going to fill up on gas, and I go in and get me a bag of potato chips and some water. So the guy from the Kurds said, "Let me pay for that, man." I didn't think nothing about it. Let him pay for it. When I got to the professor's house that I had to spend the night, the guy from the Kurd left, and the other guy from Jordan, we all went to some Chinese restaurant. And so the professor stopped me and said, "Now you can't pay for nothing." I said, "What you mean?" He said, "We got this." He said, "That young guy, the guy that's younger than all of us in here, he was like 21. He said, in their culture, the youngest person pays." So I'm like, okay, cool, shit. I get up to go buy me a soda, and he comes up, he said, "Tell me you didn't pay for that meal." I said, no, I just bought a soda. Because it was such a serious tradition, so he was about to be pissed off. See what I'm saying? Based on the tradition, the youngest person pays. So it teaches ecology, or it teaches a culture of respect, and it teaches a culture of reciprocation. Every 7-Eleven you see, every Indian restaurant you see, every Korean thing you see, everything you see is from another race that's in these towns. They pack money up and send money back home to the less fortunate. Everybody does that but us. Now the spirit world told us and our people, you see what I'm saying? That's the downtrodden who don't have a society and a culture that you can even have your father leave you a company. You see what I'm saying? So as a result, these people do this all around the Caribbean. One girl was from the Philippines. They send money home all the time. So they say, you're a mama. And you got, this is an investment. Hell, you got 4, 5, 6 children. They all go to the United States and start working. And they don't have to send much, but if one send 100, and you got 5 people sending 100, you see what I'm saying, a week, or every 2 weeks, you can make a couple of $1,000 a month in a country that the dollar bill, you see what I'm saying, can buy a lot more stuff. That's like being rich. You see, so these are the concepts. So what happened, what I saw with these guys, interacting with these guys, was that little thing was, oh, this is how it is done. This is how people go to the next level. But with us, you see what I'm saying? But then again, on us, that's a spiritual reason why we are supposed to be the downtrodden to the last days. Because there's got to be something these scriptures is based on. The meek shall inherit the earth. And I know we say, well, that's reality, because ultimately, look at our situation. It's just that when are the last days? Are we in them as we speak? You see what I'm saying? Now, moving right along. I just want to do that. Let me post some libation. Y'all all right?
Yes, sir.
The tape has a lot on it, but a lot of stuff is cleared up when you get the tape. You see what I'm saying? Good number. Let me do this right quick, and then you save your question. So this is how these things roll. Y'all all right?
All right.
am I getting through, or am I